Welcome everyone, we're in my garden and this is week 12 and we finally have cucumbers. Last week I was starting to really wonder whether we're going to see any cucumbers on this vine, and now suddenly they're just really starting to pick up and come in nicely. There might be a couple other ones here and there, but I think those two that I just showed you are the biggest ones so far. So it's a relief to finally see some cucumbers starting to come in here. So I figured I would start this week's video with cucumbers. Right alongside the cucumbers is the fairly large cantaloupe melon that's been suspended in this little hammock I created out of an old sock. Because I was starting to question whether or not it can really continue to be suspended on this little thin stem that it has. So I figured I'd try to just give it a little bit of help. Yeah, if you give it a lift, you can feel that the thing's got a lot of weight. As for this melon, though, I think it's had it. We've been taking a peek at it here and there, and I've already made note of the fact that I was skeptical of whether it was going to survive, and I think it's a goner at this point. But if you look around, like up here, for example, there is another pretty good-sized melon starting to come in up here. So this might be nice big melon number 2. And I guess we'll see how that one goes. So we're keeping our fingers crossed to see if maybe we get at least a second decent sized melon out of this plant. I guess the funny thing about the melon is the fact that it was really just a rogue plant that just popped out of the compost. It was really just supposed to be a pepper growing over there, but out of my compost from some seed that must have stayed in there, it just sprouted out, and now it's really become one of the more interesting plants in my garden, so I'm glad it's there. So the majority of my my peppers are these Hungarian wax peppers, and they're the slightly spicy type, so they got a good bite. But other than those, I've got a couple other plants going here. This plant has smaller sized peppers on it, and I did notice this one here that got attacked by something. It just almost like somebody shot a bullet through it. Something bored its way in there and helped itself to this pepper, so I'm going to peel that off. But other than that, there's a fair number of peppers on here, but they're not very big and they're not very meaty, so I'm not really sure if they're even worth the trouble. But I don't know, maybe I'll take another one off one of these days and give it a try again. But the previous experience I had tasting these, it just really wasn't that impressive. Here we got a pretty good sized pepper starting to develop on this plant. Hopefully not a spicy pepper. And then over here we've got the jalapenos, which are starting to come along pretty good. They got a little bit of kick. Finally got a chance to taste one of these this week, and there's definitely a nice tasty pepper on there. But it's the only one I've had so far. So maybe this week I'll start eating them more regularly. All the other pepper plants are coming along quite nicely. Some of these are already ready to be taken down. They're starting to become red, which is usually the sign that the pepper has gotten to that nice ripe stage. Here's another one that's starting to turn color a little bit, so that one should be picked off as well pretty soon. But all the plants, everywhere you look, covered with peppers. This one doesn't look too good either. This one's gotten something on it. Oh, this one got bored into as well, so let's get rid of this too. But I mean, that's not bad considering how many of these peppers I've got growing out here. Here's another one that's starting to change color a little bit. Considering how many I've got growing out here, I'm kind of lucky to have only had those 2 peppers get attacked by insects. So no big deal, I guess. Alright, well that leads us to the tomatoes finally, and now you can finally see that some of these tomatoes that were described to me as being tangerine tomatoes are starting to finally ripen and come to the color that they're supposed to be. Unfortunately, this most ripe looking one over here has got a big crack in it. So I haven't even tasted one of these yet. I'm curious. Just that it's hard to tell from its color when it's really ripe, so I've been just looking at them as they're kind of yellow, and wasn't sure what to make of them. So maybe it's time to take one of these off and give it a try, and hopefully they're tasty. And Down here you can see some suckers growing. I've not been keeping up with my pruning. What a shame. Look at this. My cool little upside down snowman gets withering away. I left it on here too long. It just didn't look like it was completely ripe, so I left it. But it looks like the bottom of it has started to wither away, so maybe it's also a goner now as well. But you can see throughout this plant there's tons and tons of tomatoes growing, and all the way up. It's a pretty good sized plant, and I think it's going to be time to start putting my tomato hooks to use now. And what I'll usually do is I'll usually unspool some of the line that's wound up on here and drop the entire plant down a little bit. Now that all the lower fruit can be coming off pretty soon, that means the lower part of the plant can be lowered down, maybe even against the ground if need be, giving the plant more room to continue growing up the string. But you can already see I've already gone past the string, past the hook, almost past the overhead framework. So it is time that I start dropping some of these plants down because they're getting tall. Oh, here we've got some heirloom tomatoes. Not very impressive. They're not very big, and a couple of them don't even look all that healthy, so not the end of the world. They're still pretty tasty, even though they're not that impressive looking. Here at the end, these are finally getting ripe, but unfortunately only one of the plants survived. The second one pooped out and has already more or less withered away, so that's history. And over here too, some of these tomatoes look like they might be ready for picking soon, except maybe this one. Looks like this might have been burrowed into as well. But these beefsteak tomatoes, they're all coming along really nice. These are really tasty, really lush, sweet, delicious, nice, tasty tomatoes. And here again, they're growing all over the place, all the way up and up and up. And here too, these plants are ready to be lowered a little bit because they've already exceeded the height of the framework. And that leads us to this unusual little cherry tomato plant, which is more or less withering at this point. Doesn't look very good, and none of the fruit is really looking too good on it either. It wasn't very tasty, so it didn't really get consumed very much, so that one might be a goner at this point as well. So, oh yeah, here's another rogue plant. It too is a melon, I believe. Just from the look of it, you could see a little melon growing there already. How do you like that? But that's pretty much where we stand with the garden. And I'll just take a little backed off view of everything and a little walk around so you can see it all from a distance. But that's it for this week's update. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up. I always appreciate that, and also consider becoming a subscriber to my channel. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.